Oh, good morning. A couple days away from the NFL draft. We're heading to Vegas Thursday morning. We'll be there. Looking forward to it. Out of bounds, ESPN 1059 The Zone. We believe that we'll have two guys drafted from Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Well, one apiece. Charles Cross, Matt Corral in the first round. Although there's some debate around whether Matt Corral will slip out of the first round. I don't see it, but we'll see what shakes out. Everybody's got a different opinion, that's for sure. I've read two articles on theathletic.com, and I feel like I'm chasing my tail on what people think about these NFL QBs. We want to welcome in our friend Mike Detillier. He's been covering the draft for over 30 years. WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike joins us on the Corona Premier Guest Line. Our show is powered by Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. Mike, do you remember where you were when you heard about when Mike Ditka was the coach of the Saints and you heard about the Rickey Williams deal?
Yeah, we were doing. We had heard the rumors all week. Okay, there was somebody in the front office that was talking out of school. They thought it was way too much to give up for Rickey, and so it sort of got leaked out to. I was doing coverage at that time, Buddy Diliberto. And so Buddy and I, we had heard it all week long, and there were a couple different people there that was totally against it, thought it was way too much to give up for Rickey. And so we doing draft coverage at the Saints facility outside. At that point in time, the Saints had sort of teamed up with WWL and allowed us to do draft fests in outside of their facilities where the public could come and everything else. So, and we could see it sort of breaking down. And once Indianapolis took Edgerrin James, I knew it was going to happen. And yeah, a short time, but people went crazy. It's one of the moments for me, because I knew it. And I said that seals the deal. Rickey Williams is going to be a member of the Saints. I'm driving back home, and I hear ESPN radio, and I hear myself say it. So they had actually kind of captured that little point in time. But that's where I was. We did it, and, man, Mike comes on stage, and Mike had difficulty sort of walking real good. And our stage is high. We actually had about three guys actually help us pull him up on stage. And he was like Julius Caesar addressing the Romans. he was holding court that day. And one of the first things he tells me, Mike loved to play golf, was that, hey, your uncle's going, and one of my uncles would play golf with him. And he was like, hey, your Uncle Harvey's going to play golf tomorrow, right? I'll be there. He had thrown the towel in because there was no draft picks. I'm not kidding you. So that was it. Basically, they picked Rickey in almost end of day. And that was it. But that was the first thing when he got on stage. He tells me, hey, he says, your Uncle Harvey's going to play golf tomorrow morning early, right? I said, he does every Sunday. Why? He says, well, I'll be there.
It's still unbelievable that Mike Ditka did this in the Saints. I mean, so for our listeners, you're looking at 7, 8 picks, first round, third round, first round, third round. I mean, Mike Ditka just gave away everything for a running back. And I know the league had yet to transition totally, but holy smokes, that's incredible.
He really thought that Rickey would be his version of Walter Payton here in New Orleans. He really thought that way. Didn't really care for Edgerrin James very much. The interview with him and Edgerrin, I think, didn't go extremely well. And so, but Rickey could charm you now if he wanted to, and that was a feature of him. And when he really wanted to turn up the charm, he was really good at it. And Mike bought into it, and he really thought that he would be his version of Walter Payton. And had he not traded the picks away, Mike told me later he would have picked Cade McCown, who was the left-handed quarterback from UCLA.
Gracious.
Yeah, that's what he told me. He said I would have gone with Cade. He liked his toughness, and he had a limited career, but So I'm not sure what's worse, giving up all the picks or seeing Ditka pick, because he totally didn't want to hear anything from the scouts. He wanted his players. He had a little list, and that's who he was going to go with. And it didn't matter what scout rating or what formula they had. He was going to pick his guy.
Well, that didn't work out.
No, it sure didn't. He became he wasn't the first celebrity coach on this team. Hank Stram was the first celebrity coach, but he did it. Man, he stuck his chest out a lot farther than Hank did. Put it to you that way. I mean, Hank had his ways about things, but man, Mike was really something. And nothing interfered with his golfing. Nothing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Nothing interfered with that. Kevin Mawai came in for a visit when he was leaving Seattle. He ended up signing with the Jets. And Kevin had to be there for 7 o'clock because on this Saturday, Ditka had a 8:30 tee-off time.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mike, compare all right, so I read Jeff Duncan's book, but you're a Saints insider. You've been there for years. I mean, but that's when it really jumped off the page at me of Sean Payton and Drew Brees and the grind, and Payton's quotes of "I don't know any other way." Compare Sean Payton's schedule to Mike Ditka's. Mike.
Oh, there's no way you could compare it. Sean will burn that midnight oil till he can't anymore, and especially early in the week. That was something because he does the Sean Payton show or Saints Coaches show on a Monday, and he's so enthralled with that. And a lot of times he would be late to do the show on radio because he was watching film or he saw something that he wanted to take a longer look at, and you could tell he wanted to hurry up and get off to go back to watch, and he would stay there late. I'm talking about 12:30, 1 o'clock on a Monday and a Tuesday. It wasn't that later in the week, but he. In comparison to Mike, I mean, come on, there is no comparison. Mike let all the assistant coaches do the film breakdown, and then on Friday, he would try to come up with the game plan himself.
Oh, good grief.
Now, that wasn't Sean. Sean would always come up with the game plan early, and then there was a sort of a powwow where him and Drew would sort of look over what plays would work and what plays wouldn't. And Drew had a lot of stroke in that. I'm not real crazy about running this play and let's do it, let's shelve this and let's do that. But as far as work ethic, man, it's not even close. Nothing in comparison at that particular point. And again, Mike had become the celebrity coach. I don't know how Mike did things in Chicago, but when he was here, it wasn't that way at all. It was golfing early in the morning, take his nap at 1:30 in the afternoon. Because George Hallis did it, and he would always tell me that I take my nap at 1:30 in the afternoon. He said Coach Hallis did the exact same thing. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, because some people they're so regimented that they kind of forced themselves to take that little nap. But man, Mike had retired, but he just hadn't told everybody. He had really sort of semi-retired, and he hadn't told anybody about it. But you can't compare the work ethic of at the end with Ditka and Sean. Sean was a grinder to the end, and even at draft time, Sean he met numerous times with Bobby and I, and would talk about, I know the top 100 players really well. So I said, what happens when you get to 101? He said, well, that's why we got scouts. He said, I rely on them. Yeah. But, man, he was in the draft. Those first 3-4 rounds, he knew those players really well. Now, after that, you can't expect that coach is going to know every little bit because, during the football season, he's keeping up with the NFL games.
Sure.
He's not watching college football. But Sean really, really had a lot of insights on the early picks. He knew those guys really well. I'm not sure where Ditka was pulling some of the stuff he was pulling from.
Good grief.
And I assume he was getting that from a third party. He was getting that from someone he trusted in some scouting capacity, but he was not involved with the Saints.
What an absolute cluster. I mean, Ditka was 15 and 33 and just, gave away the farm for a running back. Not that Rickey wasn't productive. He had 2 1,000-yard seasons with the Saints and had some some good moments down in Miami, but goodness gracious, wow.
I'll never forget. People went crazy that day when they picked Rickey. It's as big an explosiveness from a crowd that I've ever seen on a draft day that I've done when they pick Rickey. Even Reggie Bush did not have the excitement of Rickey Williams in the trade. And Ro Brown, who was a long-time media person, worked with Channel 8 and Channel 6, ABC and NBC, and he was working for NBC at this time. He walked to the stage and said, hey, listen, when you get a moment, I need to interview you. I said, okay. And, man, the crowd was going absolutely nuts with Rickey. And they were waiting for Ditka to come there to speak. So I jumped off stage. I did the interview with Ro, and I told him, I said, Ro, what do you think about, the deal for Rickey Williams? Man, they gave up a ton, didn't they? He looked at me and said, yeah, why is everybody excited for us? I said, well, because they're bringing in a star. He says, who's going to play quarterback? I know, and he was just deadpan about it. Who's going to play quarterback? And he was absolutely right. But that was just Ditka being Ditka. And, again, it went to show this is really before free agency hit real hard in the NFL, mm-hmm. that he was sort of out of touch with how the league worked, how the scouting department worked, everything else. But it was year one with him that he gave me a comment that I still sort of shake my head about, and I knew he was not totally engulfed into the draft. The Saints picked Chris Nioli, who was a guard from Colorado, who was a good player, but, he wasn't a signature player, and they picked him in the teens. But he was a Ditka favorite. Ditka loved him because, man, he was an aggressive guy, hard-working kid, everything else. And my highest-ranked player at that time was Tony Gonzalez on the board. So as we talk, and he'd come do the interview right after the pick. When we talk, and I asked him off the air before we went on the air, man, what do you think about Tony Gonzalez? Nothing more than a glorified receiver. And I'm like, oh, what? Okay. But it really, that pick, it came down to either Nioli or Warwick Dunn, who was a Baton Rouge native, really good player, too, at Florida State. And he had a good NFL career. But it came down to those two guys, Nioli and Warwick Dunn, and he he just sort of dismissed Tony Gonzalez. He's nothing more than a glorified receiver. Yeah, and a damn good one.
Hall of Famer.
That's why he's in the NFL Hall of Fame, too. But Mike couldn't even pick out another tight end. That was the other part. He couldn't even figure out that Gonzalez would be such a big impact player in the NFL. And that's when I realized totally, and this is early in year one with him, that he was way out of touch with the NFL.
Sounds like John Gruden before John Gruden.
Years away, he didn't learn anything.
So he would. I could see that with Mike Ditka from his generation, from him playing, being successful, having some success with the Bears. I know everything. I know how to evaluate. I don't need to lean on anybody. It kind of reminds me of Gruden. And he became a celebrity coach in between those two stints, like you mentioned, between the Bears and the Saints. A lot of Gruden there to me. I know everything. I don't need anybody's help. I can do it all, Mike.
Yep, there was a lot of that in that. And, he had every commercial in the world. I mean, good gracious, you couldn't put on a TV.
Oh, I remember.
And he wasn't doing commercials for one product and another. And so if you visited Mike in his office, and that happened a couple times. Hey, you got a second? I need to talk to you. And you go visit with him. He had stacks of memorabilia he was signing. Shirts, jerseys, helmets, footballs, stacked all in that office. He would talk to you but never look at you because he was signing the entire time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So, he had so many things going. And, I know Buddy really pushed Ditka because we did a casino show every week with Mike. When he was out of coaching. He said all the right things. He just never did them. But he said all the right things. He really did. I will give him that during that time frame we were doing the shows and he was on WWL, he would say the right things, but he never did them. Once he became the head coach, then he went back to being, I'm in charge of all personnel, and this is how I'm going to do it. And he was, I can't say distracted because his schedule was pretty regimented. It was golf early in the morning. It was, meet and greet, and he'd be at some
at his steakhouse
maybe
or something.
No, at some convention speaking.
Oh yeah, speaking engagements.
$100,000 or whatever,
right.
Motivational speaking. He flew all over. One time, because I know my uncle, who was that time playing golf with him, told me that he skipped a couple days of golf one weekend because, I don't know, somebody was paying him like $150,000 for the weekend to go speak at some convention in Cabo. This is like a week before the draft. No, I'm not kidding you. I mean, you can't make stuff up like this. But that was Mike. He was in such demand everywhere. And then when he became the head coach again, it wasn't just people in the city of New Orleans, because there was a big contingent of people in Chicago that thought the Bears made a huge mistake firing him. And he was already a celebrity there. Now he becomes a celebrity here. And all these corporate junkets all over, he was in the middle of all of it. Meet and greet, speaking, autographing, you name it. He was involved with it. He made more money doing that than he did coaching the Saints.
Unreal. Mike Ditka, what a story. 15-33, gave away the farm for Rickey Williams, and played golf and did speaking engagements while trying to win in the NFL. You think Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Sean McVay do that?
Even Hank, and I will, because Hank worked for us too now at WWL. Hank was never like that when he was coaching the Saints. Never like that. Hank was a grinder. Now, Hank was constantly changing his own game plan, and he would even do it on a Saturday night, was changing game plans. But Hank was a grinder and a studier of everything. That I can't say about Mike. Mike was an unbelievable player, one of the toughest guys to ever put on a helmet and a jock strap. He was an unbelievable talent at tight end. And I think early on in his career, he was different as a coach. But as he became more and more famous, and he became Iron Mike, and he became this bigger-than-life personality as a coach, that fame and that fortune again changed him totally. Now, he would never admit it, but you could see it. You could see it. And it does with a lot of people. Believe me, it does with a lot of people who get a little bit of it, and it changes their personality, their work ethic. They're juggling so many different things and don't realize what got them there. And I think Mike forgot the grind and the coaching and everything else got him there. And he was very fortunate, too. And he had told me this a few times about I wouldn't be where I am today, first, without George Halas hiring me, because I was a special teams tight ends coach with the Cowboys. And he said, secondly, the foundation Jim Finks laid for me in Chicago. When you think about Jim and all those picks,
no doubt,
all those players, 85% of them that Ditka won the Super Bowl with were Jim Finks picks.
Yeah. Wow. All right, we'll leave it there. Mike. All right, Mike D, I got 1 minute. I got 30 seconds. Any way, and you know what, that the Saints pick a QB with one of their 2 picks in the first round Thursday night?
I'd be absolutely shocked if they did.
Okay.
I really do. I think they pick tackle, receiver, tackle. It's the 2 big areas of need. Okay. And safety would be the third. But I don't see them going for a quarterback.
All right. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, at Mike Detillier on Twitter. He's into all kinds of good stuff. He's been covering the NFL draft for well over 30 years. And I can't wait to see what shakes out as the Saints have 2 picks in the first round of the NFL draft. Thanks, Mike D. Be good.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it, Bob.
Mike Detillier on the Corona Premier Guest Line. Was that a great stories on Mike Ditka? Now, Blake, we need to meet at 7 because I got to be on the golf course at 8:30. I want you to think Bill Belichick, Sean Payton. I mean, if y'all read that book by Jeff Duncan on Payton and Breeze, I felt my shoulders getting tense on Sean and Drew's schedule. It will blow your mind how they grinded for 15, 16 hours a day, not leaving the facility, not getting on Instagram, not going home to see their puppy dog, not calling their friend about lunch. They had no idea what day it was, if it was storming outside. Unbelievable. Show is brought to you by Sound and Communications, the leader in audio and visual for churches, business, and sports facilities.